My name is Crisol Escobedo. I'm a philosophy instructor here at EPCC. The title of my talk is Reading Comprehension and Conceptual Analysis in Philosophy. Before I actually start with my project, I'd like to give you some background. And this came about from the research action project I had for the Teachership Academy Phase 1, titled Motivating Students to Read Required Course Material. So the reason why I wanted to go ahead and do this was because we tend to think that reading prior to lecture will actually help students understand the concepts that we talk about. So in particular, philosophy is difficult to understand because we deal with a lot of abstract concepts. So it is very crucial for students to come to class before having read the material that was going to be covered on that day. In order to motivate students to do so, I went ahead and created an extra credit assignment asking them to find 10 things they found interested about the readings. And then I recorded the performance analysis on 7 different assignments. When I went ahead and collected the results, I found that there wasn't, for the most part, statistical significance. That only 1 out of 7 assignments there was a difference between that. So this was contrary to prior research. Some of the limitations in my study included that I targeted reading instead of reading comprehension. And because of this, I wasn't really targeting content area learning, which is why maybe they weren't understanding the concepts and there was no statistical difference in the results. For the Teachership Academy Phase 2 project, I went ahead and overcame those limitations by trying to look at reading comprehension instead of just reading and see if there was any effect on the conceptual understanding in philosophical concepts. So what I did was I went ahead and talked about and asked them to go ahead and comprehend what they were reading. And this was very important because that would give them prior exposure. And by doing so, it would go ahead and trigger meaningful understanding versus factual knowledge. So it's very important for students to comprehend what they're reading because studies have shown that student success and academic standards are raised by reading comprehension because it will aid them in critical thinking and communication skills. Community college students, however, have difficulties with content area reading. One way to overcome this is by implementing content area learning. So we can supplement lecture, and by doing so, we can increase student learning. So reading, writing, and vocabulary strategies can be used in order for us to be able to help students understand what they're reading. Content area literary strategies include selecting and analyzing key terms, concept mapping, creating focus questions, and creating comparison charts. So for this particular phase 2 of the project, I went ahead and gave students assignments that focused on content area literary strategies instead of just reading. The purpose of this study was to determine if having students complete assignments involving content area literary strategies prior to assessment increases comprehension of philosophical concepts. My hypothesis was that students who do complete the assignments involving content area literary strategies prior to assessment will perform better on expert sessions than students who do not complete them. What I did for this study was to go ahead and take 2 of my Introduction to Philosophy classes. The Philosophy 1301, section number 21667, was the experimental group, and they meet Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 to 8:50, and this is at the Rio Grande campus. The number of students in this class was 15. The Philosophy 1301, section number 21677, was my control group, and they meet at 8:30 to 9:50 Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Northwest campus, and I have 29 students in this class. What I ended up doing was I went ahead and gave my experimental class, which was the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 8:50, an assignment that involved selecting and analyzing terms. I also asked them to complete an outline, and I gave them focus questions to go ahead and help them complete the assignment. For the control class, which was the 8:30 to 9:50 Tuesday and Thursday, I just asked them to read the material. I let them know that they were going to go ahead and have an expert session and to come prepared, but I did not require any sort of assignment to be turned in. The assessment itself was an expert session, which is a 5-minute presentation, and they had to go ahead and explain particular philosophical concepts. These are my results. I went ahead and measured them on 3 expert sessions, and as you can see, the control versus the experimental group, for the first expert session, there was no statistical significance. But for expert sessions 2 and 3, there was statistical significance at p.05. So for these, the control group actually performed better than the experimental group. So here's the data in chart form. So for expert session 1, there wasn't really any statistical significance, but for expert sessions 2 and 3, there was. The purple is the control group, and the light yellow is the experimental group. Based on my results, I was not able to find adequate support for my conclusion. On the contrary, the control group outperformed the experimental group on 2 of the expert sessions, instead of the experimental group outperforming the control group. As far as the control group performance, statistical significance was at p.05, expert session 2 and 3 showed statistical significance. Expert session 2 showed it at p.011, expert session 3 showed it at p.048. For expert session 1, there was no statistical significance. One explanation for my results was the limitations to the study. The class samples were not the same, so there was a difference in size. My experimental group only had 15 students as opposed to my control, which had 29. The time that the class was given could also have been a factor. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays classes are shorter than the Tuesdays and Thursday classes, so maybe that contributed to the difference in the results. Also, another possible explanation is that because they were taking place at the 2 different campuses, the student population might have been different, and that might have influenced the results. Other limitations I encountered was in the assignment that I gave them. I noticed that my experimental group went ahead and turned in incomplete assignments. Some of the assignments were improperly done. And this had to do because of the strategy they used to go ahead and complete the assignment. I did not give them any prior instruction on how to do the assignment. I just went ahead and asked them to do it. So that could have influenced the results as well. As far as what I want to do with the study, I'm going to go ahead and modify my teaching strategy to actually include reading comprehension strategies. So as professors, we tend to assume that the students coming into our classes are proficient in reading comprehension, but that might not necessarily be the case. As a result, I'm planning to incorporate different techniques into my teaching methodology that will address reading comprehension. Such would include metacognitive processes, where I go ahead and ask them to identify the purpose and for them to create a process that will help them comprehend the material and also to motivate them and to complete the assignment properly. Another thing that I can do is to go ahead and focus on reading strategies and teach them how to be able to, for example, engage in peer teaching, in encoding, and part of encoding include concept maps and the SQ3R method. One of the reasons why I suspect that maybe the control group performed better is because they were actually engaging in some of these strategies more than the experimental group. Since they were allowed to go ahead and talk about the material before actually giving their presentation, they were able to share ideas more efficiently than the students who went ahead and completed the assignment by themselves. Here are my list of references. Thank you.